So before we show you this video, I just want to go over a couple things because it's a really long interview. And so I want you to know what's coming up in this interview. The first thing is that Patrick, who we're interviewing, will be talking about his scamming in EVE Online and some that he did in World of Warcraft. He also talks about how he scammed his own corp and stuff like that. Then he gets into more stuff about how exactly he defrauded PayPal and was able to send money to different bank accounts and was able to spend money he didn't have through his employer, getting information that he only had access to from his employer. Then goes on to even further talking about how he used some social strategies to get women to front him the money for different things and then leave him hanging. And then finally talks a little bit about the websites that he would do his scamming on, and the websites being places like markeedragon, Real Poor, and Craigslist. So I bring you the interview. Hello, I'm markeedragon, and today we're going to talk to a admitted scammer. And what I mean by that, he's someone who has taken stuff from other players and without their permission to do so. So I've got Patrick on the phone here, and Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about maybe just a little bit of background about yourself or what you've been doing?
Well, I guess I got into it. It would have been quite a few years ago. I started off in EVE Online, and EVE Online is just a place dwelling with scammers. And it was actually an alliance in there called Goonswarm. And at the time, there was a CEO of the Goonswarm who was a friend of mine in real life, and his name was Remedial. And anyways, Remedial was the one, and he's no longer in EVE anymore, but Remedial was the one who got me into scamming. And it all started as just an in-game thing where you would basically just try to trick someone into giving you something, and they would think they would get something back, but you would just keep it, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how I got into it. And from there, it progressed, and I started scamming more and more, and until eventually I got so deep into it that I ended up, I was actually a director in the Alliance Goons, and I actually ended up ripping off my own alliance.
Oh,
And
goodness.
because the goon way is always, I mean, I'm sure lots of your viewers know all about goons, and goons always say fuck goons, and I took it literally. And I thought I was more goon than they were, so I just said fuck them, and I just ripped off my own friends. And I guess that's the life of a scammer, is a lonely one.
Yeah, so it's kind of like honor among thieves.
Yeah, actually, I mean, there really is no such thing as honor, but when you take on when you become a scammer, you really trade honor for riches, and that's in real life and in game. So the ability to have honor and to have people honor you and being an honorable person, that goes out the window immediately when you become a scammer.
So yeah, we actually have a lot of experience with Goonswarm, and we've actually done a lot of business with them over the years. So it's interesting how you talk that way about Goonswarm, and I haven't had the same experience. I've never been cheated by them, but I don't know. Maybe that's because we had what they wanted. So
It may be. Anyone that plays EVE knows that goons are notorious for scamming. One of the biggest scams they have is they'll find players that want to join them, because they're the biggest alliance in EVE Online. And then what they'll do is they'll be like, okay, you can join, but you need to pay a couple $100 million ISK to join, and then they'll do that, and then they'll just close the chat. And that's actually, goons are notorious for that. They always do it. If you go on the Evo forums, you'll see all over. It's just, goons are just notorious scammers.
yeah, so and I thought they were just aggressive and Well, I didn't know it went that far. I know I've been affected to some of the website stuff before, but yeah, I didn't know it went quite that far. So when you stole from Goonswarm, what was it, a large amount?
Let's see, this was in like 2006, and I wouldn't say I stole from a goon swarm. I stole from my corp because there's corps and alliances,
Okay.
and my corporation at the time I stole from them. That wasn't Goon Fleet. That was actually another corp that I joined. I was in Goon Fleet on another character, but on that character I never stole anything. I still have that character in Goon Fleet on an active account.
Mm-hmm.
However, another corporation there, which I'm not going to name, I was a director. How much I stole was 9 billion-esque.
9 billion with a B?
9 billion, B.
Okay.
And that was, still not an incredible lot at the time, but it was enough for me to go buy a very expensive character in their forums and completely change my identity.
Interesting. So then you moved on to other games, like I'm assuming you've scammed in World of Warcraft?
Yeah, World of Warcraft, World of Warcraft, I just did it for shits and giggles. Every other month, whenever I got bored, I would just activate my account. And I would go stand in, Borgrimmar?
Mm-hmm.
And I would just go stand in there, and I would just, spam who wants a Crusader enchant. You need to provide the mats. And people would come with their weapon and mats, and they would just trade to me, and I would just take it and cause a little drama just to get a laugh, and then, then move on. Scamming in game was always mostly about just lulz, and lulz, by definition, is having fun at the expense of others. Something that I'm no longer really about now. But, at the time, I think a lot of people that aren't really happy with themselves like to go out of their way to make trouble for others because it makes them feel better about themselves. And, at the time, I was one of those people that wasn't so happy with myself, so I like to just cause misfortune on others. And so, yeah, scamming in-game. And then from there, so scamming in-game is something that, I always just did for fun and just to get by. But it really went into... I ended up losing my job. This was later on in like 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up losing my job. And then, bills got tight. And I remember I was going to sell my EVE Online account, and I had my PayPal set up, and I went and I posted on Craigslist, and someone contacted me, and they sent the money to PayPal, and then from there it was the second I got the money, and I was just like, wow, I got their money, and they don't have my account.
Right.
So I went through the EULA, and I was like, well, how can I get away with this? And I read their EULA, and I seen that there was no protection for. Basically, I found a loophole for any sales with intangible items. They, do not support at all.
Correct.
And from the way I read it,
Is this
like,
EULA for the?
Go ahead.
Is this for the games EULA or for PayPal?
This is for the PayPal EULA.
Okay.
Because what I was doing was I had sold an EVE account for the first time, but I didn't actually give the account over yet. I had the guy's money, which was about $750, and that was enough to pay my rent at the time. And I was like, well, geez, I got their money, and they don't have my account, so, how can I get away with not giving him the account? And I knew that he didn't have my real EVE Online account information, so he couldn't actually get him in trouble, because at the time, well, like with most EVE Online accounts, people will not share the name of the character out of fear that it'll get banned or something.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just provide like a copy of the skills, of what skills he has. And at the time, that was a really big thing. You could just post on skills, skill point sheets, and you could just cover over the name and stuff, and people would think that's what they're buying. So anyways, I made the sale, and then I was looking through the PayPal EULA trying to find, and it might even be their terms of service, not EULA. I just say that because I'm a gamer. Anyways, and I found that they don't protect the sales of intangible items at all. There's no support for it. So I just kind of started there. And what would happen is the guy would basically he finds out that he's getting scammed, and then he goes to PayPal and says, "This guy's ripping me off."
Mm-hmm.
And PayPal has this like automated system set up to deal with who's in the right and who's in the wrong.
Correct.
So if I was able to provide proof of shipping, then that means that I sold him something. So what I would do whenever I got someone's money, and I would get their real address, and I would actually mail them a piece of paper with some bullshit account information on that wasn't even correct. And, you didn't even have to write any kind of information. You just send them a blank piece of paper with a tracking number. And then you have a tracking number and you have proof that you actually sent something to him. And so from there, PayPal is completely, 100%, they're like, okay, well, you gave him money and he has a tracking number. He obviously shipped you the product, so everything's fine. And then the buyer would actually be screwed, and then I would keep the money, and my PayPal account would, they would put it in the negative for a little while during the dispute. But from there, I would move on and, went on.
So how, basically this sounds like a process that you could just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, it was for quite a while until PayPal caught up with it. I think that what it was is I ended up scamming. The last time it worked, I ended up scamming some guy in the Navy, and the tracking number I ended up sending something to a base. Like it was some guy that played
like an APO or something.
Warcraft,
yeah.
And he lived on base, and I sent him the tracking information, and I think they knew he had connections with someone in PayPal or something, because then after that guy, it stopped working. Either that or PayPal realized what was going on, and they started fixing it. That's the point where PayPal started to take favor over the buyer and not the seller. So from there, we had to change our tactics. And at this stage, I was working with other people that I knew were scammers, and we were just exchanging information on how to get by and, what to look out for and stuff like that. And you would even have these scammer versus scammer battles where, okay, let me start over. So PayPal started fixing their problems, and now they care more about the buyers, even though their terms of service still says that they do not support anyone for the sale of intangible items. What would happen is, instead of selling someone and getting someone's money, we found that it was easier to scam them by actually having some money up front. And what I would do is we would buy people's accounts, and then from there we would file saying that this person scammed us. And then I would have PayPal would actually give my money back to me, but I would now have full control of this person's account, which I already sold to someone else as a real account. So some people were actually getting real accounts sold to them, and then those definitely wouldn't get disputed. That was guaranteed money, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to, if you're selling accounts, you wouldn't want to scam them then, because then PayPal would obviously come at you. And so do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So in PayPal with this scam, how many times were you able to do each of these? Like you described, to where you sold accounts. How many times were you able to do that before that stopped working?
Well, that got a little bit deeper. You can do it about the second you have a dispute on your account, PayPal locks it all up. So there you go on to stealing identities from people in real life and using other people's identities to create PayPal accounts. And you have to have their social security number, and you have to have their full name and stuff like that. And from there, you would actually use someone else's identity with someone that probably would never even create a PayPal account, doesn't even know about it. And they never find out about it because PayPal always assumes that's you. But you can use any bank account information. So from there, you set up the bank account information with your bank account with their real identity. All right?
Oh, so you end up using your real bank account to verify this fake identity.
Right, which is stupid.
Sounds like a flaw.
It never caught up with me. I don't know why. Maybe because the people identities I was using, they never knew about it. And where you steal other people's identities, I mean, that's getting really illegal, and that is, I was working for this big company, and I was working, I'm not going to say the name of the company, but I was working in the HR department. I was a recruiter. So I had information to anyone that applied to work for this company, and it was a very big company. They had about 6,000 employees. So anyways, what you would do is, you would create an account in someone else's name, and you would basically try to get the money from the sale into your bank account right away. And if you're really lucky, you can get the sale into your bank account, and you can close the PayPal account before the person puts in a dispute. And that would really basically make it so that the connection with your bank account is no longer there. You almost close that off or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was really trial and experiment. I mean, I was 21, 22 years old while I was doing this, and I was working with other young people, and it wasn't like we were genius masterminds. We were just trying to figure out ways to rip people off and pay our bills. And it has a lot to do with the economy going bad in America that we were all doing it, because before that we all had regular jobs and we'd never even thought about it or considered it. Then when you get really low, I mean, anyone that's been really, really low and has been really hungry, and anyone that's scrounged for nickels and dimes knows that you'll do anything for food, and you'll do anything to keep a roof over your head, especially in the cold winter. And that was basically it.
So basically, you had a unending source working in the HR department, and it was like applications coming in, so it'd have their name, address, phone number, and their social security number and all that stuff.
Yeah. All you need is their name and social. That's it.
Yeah.
If you have someone else's name and social, you can you can change anything else, but you can create a PayPal account in their name.
Interesting. So, tell me about how much money you were able to make doing stuff like this.
I never went overboard because I was always really paranoid about the law, and I was really paranoid about getting in trouble. So the only thing that I ever did it was when I needed to pay my bills. And overall, I probably, I don't know, like $10,000 to $20,000 in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it for about 1 year.
Yeah, well, that's pretty
But
good.
I have other friends that did it and made I knew this one kid that was like 18 years old, and he must have made $100,000 and escaped with it. And I never heard from him again. I'm pretty sure he took that money and went to another country, or he got busted and went to jail. But I know he was doing a lot of them. And one day I just never heard from him again. And I know he had probably made about $100,000.
How is it that you think that that the law never caught up with you on this?
Well, because I made sure that I only did small transactions. So if anyone ever had a dispute, they were complaining about, $300 to $600. And if you've ever tried to there has to be a certain number for the government to care. And if you keep it under $1,000, they're not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's why PayPal tried to come after me. I actually, PayPal eventually did catch up with me. I don't think they know everything, but they do have my, okay, so the reason why I had to start using other people's accounts names is because my name and information ended up getting on a block list. PayPal actually has a blacklist of people that have, just been, not reputable.
Right.
And they will no longer do business with them. So there's certain social security numbers that are blacklisted, and there's certain, names matched with those social security numbers that are blacklisted.
Yeah, I can see how that'd be a problem, and may it'll make it hard to do some financial transactions in the future.
PayPal really is kind of one of the good things that helps a lot of people out is that PayPal is so used that no one really does anything else. So it's really hard. Like, I have done scams where I've tricked people into doing direct deposit into my bank account through a wire transfer. And, I mean, those possible. It takes a lot more work and a lot more charisma and a lot more talking to get them to do that. And you basically have to convince them that you can't use PayPal. But most people use PayPal, so most of the time when you're dealing with someone that's scamming you on PayPal, they're usually scamming you the first time that they've ever done a scam, and they usually only do one scam, the average scammer, that is. I talked to lots of guys that tried to get into it. They did it one time. They got their PayPal accounts locked up, and they're like, well, I can't do anything now. Obviously they don't think about stealing other people's identities just for obvious reasons. I mean, that's a major federal issue.
Right. So what is the What is the one scam that you pulled off that was the most interesting to you or the most impressive,
Um, hmm.
or the one you worked hardest on and you got a big payoff? You know.
I okay. I got scared and got away from the. It would have been the last one. The most interesting and the most just. That's when it really got low. Trying to figure out just different ways to get around the system without getting yourself in trouble. And I started getting scared because I was starting to get to the point where, okay, I've scammed like $10,000 to $20,000 now, and if it gets traced to me, I'm absolutely fucked. So then from there, I actually started going to bars and meeting girls and talking these girls into loving me. And then from there, I would have them set up a PayPal account, and I would use their bank account, and I would do the sale all through them. I would get her to pull out money. So even while she's waiting for the 3 days for PayPal to transfer the money to her bank account and she's expecting it, she doesn't realize where it came from. So she pulls out money from her actual bank account ahead of time, thinking, okay, I have $1,000 that's about to be deposited, and he needs $700 right now. So she would go and withdraw $700 of her money, and meanwhile she has to deal with PayPal and all the disputes with that. That was probably the most interesting one because I had actually ended up caring about this girl, and from there I actually went off and got a real job, and I actually made the money and I paid her back. Her bank account ended up getting put in the negative. PayPal actually, that's the thing I was telling you. You want to close that ability for PayPal to withdraw from your bank account. So you want to get the money and you want to close that off as quick as possible before the person puts the dispute in. And that was the most interesting one. That's when I really realized, how bad this was. I was going out of my way to find someone in real life to care about me to the point where they would front this money and they would set up a PayPal account and they would just, you could tell them any kind of lie of why you're doing it. They had no idea about the gaming accounts. But anyways, yeah, that was the most interesting one. Before that, the most interesting one would have been my very first one, which was about like $750, just because the very first time you do it, the very first time you make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars from nothing, anyone gets excited. I don't care if you're selling gold, which I've done. I've farmed in games and sold gold. The first time I did that was exciting as well, but only to make like $100 or something. But the first time I made over $500, I was just, amazed. As for just regular, interesting experiences, it was never really fun. I mean, it was just a means to get by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me, you told us about a bunch of your exploits and about a bunch of stuff you did. Now, let's talk about how the general public can protect themselves. Like when they're buying or selling an account, tell me what they should look for.
Okay. Well, when you're buying and selling accounts, you'll usually be going to websites like Realtor or your website. You don't own Realtor, right? I think that's someone else. But
yeah.
Your website. So basically, how to prevent yourself from getting in trouble. Well, a huge way to not get yourself in trouble is to basically, if you could get them to give you a copy of their driver's license, and you can somehow get them to prove that that's actually them, you can pretty much guarantee that they're not going to rip you off. I know for a fact with all the people that I worked with, if anyone was to ever try to get a copy of one of our driver's license, or someone really tried really hard to get away that if I was to screw them over, how would they get back to me in real life? We would usually back out of the sale and we wouldn't scam them. We would just in contact. Probably the most easiest way to prevent yourself from getting in trouble is like your program Trust 2. If anyone has, is with Trust 2 and they've done previous sales before where they've been legit and they can prove that they've been legit in the past, then you can probably 99% guarantee that they're going to be legit again.
Yep. Actually, 99.7%.
Go ahead.
I was going to actually say it's 99.7%. We got the stats on it.
Oh, okay. But to avoid Also, just basically anytime, like on Realtor or basically any of these sites that you can see where someone's done it, if they've never done any sales before, if they've only had one unsuccessful transaction, if you haven't seen successful sales, you really just don't want to deal with that person. You really want to, no matter how good it sounds, no matter how good the offer is, especially if it's a good deal, you're probably going to get scammed. You just really want to make sure that you're working with people that have done it before and have been legit in the past. That's the best way to keep yourself safe. Now, yes, that is going to be difficult for those of you who have, never sold your account before, and this is the first time you've trained up a character in any online game, and now you're ready to sell it to help it pay a bill, and you're going to have to, get someone to trust you, and you will. There's lots of people out there. Just a few days ago, I sold all my EVE Online accounts. I actually 7 accounts. There was a Jump Freighter account with max skilled pilots. He had a Jump Freighter and probably 3 or 4 billion of assets. Another character that was 90 million skill points, and he had maxed out gunnery skills at like 30 million skill points in gunnery. Stealth bomber pilot. I just was. I'm getting away from gaming altogether and moving on to basically just better my life. Mm-hmm. But I had to convince someone over the internet using Craigslist to deposit $500 into my bank account, and which I did. In doing so, I had to basically give him my real name. I gave him a copy of my driver's license, a full copy, and he basically did a lot of research on me and looked me up and thought of ways that he could get back to me. And he realized, he took the chance, and he deposited $500 in my bank account, and then I sent him an email with account information. It took about 3 or 4 days of talking before I could get him comfortable enough to do it. And the reason I had to go through so much was because of my, I'm obviously on the PayPal blacklist, right, and I'm not stealing other people's identities anymore, and I'm not doing anything illegal anymore. So, if any of you are looking to sell an account for the first time, and I would say, get with Trust2. So when you do have your first transaction, your first successful transaction, it is recorded. And, if you ever need to sell or buy in the future, people know that, you've done good business before in the past. And that's probably going to be the best way. I mean, Trust2 is probably, Trust2 really ruined my business. Trust2 was really getting big at the time that I was doing this. And, everyone wanted Trust2 verified people, which I wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I would say that, that is probably going to be the biggest way people can prevent themselves from being scammed, is to make sure that you're dealing with someone that has been proven successful transactions in the past.
And you weren't, so you were not able to get Trust2 verified then?
No, I wasn't able to get Trust2 verified. To be honest, I was scared of Trust2, and I didn't even try. Just something about it told me that it was going to fuck me up, and I just, excuse my language, but something about it told me that it was going to mess me up. It was, I just had a feeling in my heart that I needed to stay away from Trust2, which I did. And I started out, as you were getting Trust2 going, people were still using Marquee, your markeedragon site to buy and sell, but they weren't Trust2 verified yet. Right. And, because you just brought it out. And so I was, still using that site. And as it got more and more popular, I had to go over to Realtor because, just Trust2 was just too commonly used on Marquee.
Mm-hmm. Is Trust2 used on Realtor at all?
People are Trust2 verified. I mean, even on Craigslist, I went from Realtor because we were using Realtor so much to scam people that it became so commonly known that it was just a place just reeking of scammers. I mean, if you went to Realtor to buy or sell an account, 50% of the time you were dealing with a scammer. There were people that would do Trust2, but you would see people that would say, "Hey, I'm Trust2 verified," and you would just not really deal with them because they would only want to deal with people that are Trust2 verified as well. So as Trust2 became more popular with Realtor, then we moved on to Craigslist. Now, Craigslist is still an easy place to scam people. For one, there's always new kids turning 18 years old with money that they got from their parents. They haven't learned anything yet. They have their own bank account, and they have, usually have $1,000 in their bank account from school or whatever, and, you can usually trick, an 18-year-old kid into doing a wire transfer. And he usually doesn't talk to his parents about it because usually their parents aren't going to, support them spending $1,000 on an online gaming account.
Right.
So Craigslist is really where the scammers are hanging out now.
Interesting.
Well,
So-
the guys that I was dealing with, those guys still do Craigslist. They don't even mess with Realport. They don't mess with the markeedragon site anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there are still scams going on at all of the sites.
Yeah, I mean, those are mostly the kids that are doing it for the first time, that are learning they can, and they'll do it one time, and then, their reputation will be tarnished, and they'll never be able to scam someone again.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting, and I think some good advice. I'm actually happy to hear that Trust2 played a part in thwarting you a little bit. And so any other advice you can give to any final thoughts on that?
The best way to preventing yourself from being scammed, there's two things. One is to make sure that you can prove that they've done, successful transactions with people in the past. And the other one is to get their real information in real life. Get a copy of their driver's license. If someone's willing to give you a copy of their driver's license and they have a way to prove that that's actually them, then you can pretty much guarantee that they're not going to screw you over. The scammers are not going to want to give you their real information in real life. The legit people that are just, honest, they'll be the ones that give you their driver's license copy.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous though for people to be doing that. So those
your driver's license is, you give your copy of your driver's license all over. You never know how evil or corrupt someone is in a company that you go apply for. You have to usually give a copy of your driver's license, and that HR rep that you're dealing with might be taking your information and plugging it in on the internet.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that when I call different services and they verify me based on my social security number and stuff like that. I have worked in a call center in the past, and I know in the really big call centers that there is quite a variety of people, all the way from thieves who don't care to totally legit people. But it's always bothered me. So Patrick, thank you for taking the time to give us a few tips on how we can make our transactions safer, and from the insights of someone who has pulled off quite a few scams. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I've been thinking today more about this interview I did with Patrick, and about how I was shocked at some of the things he said, as well as everything he said was pretty much true. It wasn't anything that I hadn't heard before. So it's, I don't know, I guess it's good to know that places like Trust2 are on the right track of resolving the fraud problem. It's pretty nice to hear that Trust2 actually made a difference, at least in his mind, on how it affected where he scammed, where he did his scamming. It has not eliminated scamming in the different areas that we deal in, but it has dramatically decreased it to where it's well below 1%, more like about 0.5%, at least on the transactions that we monitor. But as far as in the forums, it is quite possibly a different story, because not everybody uses the same standards that we use for Trust2. So I guess one of the things that really disturbed me was the fact that he talked about having used women to take advantage of them, to get them to give funds out of their bank account on this theft that he was doing. And it also bothered me a bit about how he worked in HR and how he had access to all these people's records. And we wonder why identity theft is so rampant. I myself am the victim of identity theft. In fact, I did a video on it, but it hasn't been released yet. And I'll, be happy to tell all that happened on that. Somebody got me pretty good. So, and you can defend against that too. You don't have to do that. You don't have to necessarily worry about that if you've got the right things in place. Another thing that really disturbed me was the fact of how all you needed was a name and social security number, and you could open a PayPal account or at least use it for processing. And that to me seems to be a flaw. Now, I don't know if that was old information or not, and I will check with PayPal on that to see if that's old information, if that's indeed been a hole that's been plugged. So, anyway, I don't know. I'm really pleased that Patrick told us so much and let us get some insight into how these scammers and thieves operate. But at the same time, just makes me sick. They're scum of the earth. So to sum it up, I really appreciate Patrick taking the time to talk to me and to give us all some of this insight into how a scammer thinks and acts. And at the same time, though, makes me sick that that we even have to put up with this kind of stuff, But I suppose if there's no bad guys, there wouldn't be any good guys. We'd all just be mediocre. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this whole interview, and I would look forward to your thoughts. Feel free to leave them in comments on the video, message me on YouTube, or if you're watching this someplace else, contact me directly. And I will reply to as much stuff as I can. I get so much that I can't reply to it all, but I will attempt to reply to what I can. And if you are a scammer or thief out there and you want to talk about what some of the exploits you've been pulling, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to interview you. I'm markeedragon. Take care.